computer.
There we go. Good. Cool. Well, while there's a small group, why don't you tell us?
Hey, Boo.
We can tell you a little bit about ourselves, but we're going to be talking again.
I'm doing this running thing.
Nice. How's that
Yeah,
been going so far?
it's just a thing in my myself. It's like a not a. I was hoping it was not participating, but I don't. Yeah, just no strategy.
I thought that was Justin.
I get you to fill my water too. Thank you. Yeah.
Right. We always say like it's better if you've got your cameras. It works out better because then we can kind of like see what this is going to be an active webinar, so moving a little bit. So then we're able to sort of check in on how you're doing. If you have questions, if you throw your hand up, we can, generally we're able to take a peek.
It's nice to see faces too.
It is nice.
It's always nice.
It is nice to see faces with unmasked faces too. It's
Yeah.
very nice to see unmasked faces. A rarity these in the streets, and where you almost want to walk right by them. But I promise you, if they were wearing a mask, I'd recognize them right away, right? It's a funny thing. Strange world we're in right now. So we'll probably, and then we'll start diving in so that that way we don't monopolize your entire evening. Do you know if Jordan was going to be hopping on?
Right there.
Oh, look at that. There he is. Jordan, we were just talking about you. It's like you were listening in on us. How do you turn this on so that people automatically get entered so that I don't need to be tapping?
I don't think you can, because it's the only way that we can keep this like protected. So we can't get hacked. So I'll just keep an eye on it.
Okay.
If we see people, just leave it up like that.
For now. Yeah.
People start.
Okay. Cool. Awesome. Well, let's kind of dive into it then. What we'll do is and then we'll kind of chat a little bit about the overall overview of the evening, and then we'll dive into it. So my name's Don.
Dalton.
And we're two of the three founders / owners of the Movement Physiotherapy and Performance in Dundas. We're a private physio clinic really focused on getting people back to active lifestyles. So we committed the majority of our space in the clinic to a large gym so that we had lots of space to get people moving, and that sort of fits with our fundamental philosophies. So tonight, what we're going to dive into. Oh, and Jordan, thanks so much for organizing this, man. We educating people and teaching people about about their bodies. So you can never learn too much. So what we're going to be talking about tonight, we're going to start by discussing tendons. Okay. So what is the purpose of a tendon, and what are some of the jobs and duties, and how does that relate to running? We're then going to go into a little bit of anatomy on the hamstring complex, and then we're going to go into some ways to load the hamstring complex, and then we're going to follow the same pattern of a little bit of anatomy and a little bit of testing, followed by some loading for the calf muscle complex. And and then we should have a little bit of time at the end to chat a little bit about programming. How might you incorporate this stuff into a running program or a general conditioning program? And sorry, just as far as, there we are, mute all, perfect. And then what we'll do is we'll, take any questions. So, it's a reasonably small group. So throw questions in the chat, try to stay engaged. It allows us to know whether this material is resonating or not. And if you don't want to ask, to put it in the chat or even send it directly to us as a message if you don't want the rest of the group to see. So again, welcome everybody. Dalton's going to stand on up here, and we're gonna get into it. So I just need to pin his video so I can see him. Awesome. So what we're gonna standing up, and what we're gonna go through is a little bit of a bit of a lesson on tendons. So
we can see.
So we'll stand on up, and what we're going to do first is we're going to show. One of the first most basic purposes of a tendon is just to attach muscles to our bones, so it allows movement to happen, right? So force transfer. So what we're going to have you do is we're just going to have you do nice, slow, controlled heel up and down. And most of you know of or have heard of the Achilles tendon. It's the fat, thick heel cord, right? That big tendon at the back of the calf. So we're talking about force transfer in that particular tendon at the moment, okay? Now, if you have a surface to stand up on, I'll have you stand up on a small, like a stack of books or a stool, and I'm just gonna have you try to stand and land lightly, right? So try to land soft. This sort of speaks to a little bit to the purpose of a tendon where we're absorbing force. So not only do tendons transfer force, but they also absorb force, okay? And those two things combined, that absorption and release, is sort of what we're going to go into next, which is some hopping. So we're going to go into pogo hopping, and so we're just going to be kind of hopping up and down. And what this is your tendon acting sort of like a spring. Okay, so it's absorbing force, it's storing it, and then it's releasing it. So it's acting like you're seeing some elastic recoil. Right? So this is a really important function for a tendon, especially as it comes to running. So hopefully you're all feeling a little bit of blood flowing now. Emily, yeah, you can totally just hold whatever you need for balance for this, right? So modify as needed. And that goes for all of these exercises. We're going to show some various the exercises as we get into things. And so if something is feeling too challenging, right? If even the very first version that we go through feels too challenging, throw a comment in and say, hey, is there a regression for this? And Dalton and I'll figure something out for you, all right?
The other thing is, as you guys go through these, like, think about or pay attention to what you're feeling from the different movements. So for example, the ones that we just did, like, when you were doing the slow up and down, what were you feeling in your tendon area or your calf area compared to when you're doing the land, compared to when you're going up and down repetitively? You might feel different forces or tensions or different things. So pay attention to that, and we'll go through some different variations that you're going to feel a little bit different with certain movements. So just be aware of those.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good. Thanks, Dalton. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to screen share here next. Okay, and you're going to see part of a PDF that we created that we'll send out to y'all later on. So at the end of the seminar, we'll send this out to everyone, and there's links to various videos that we created. So again, like I said, we're going to talk a little bit about some anatomy, and so what we're going to be talking about first is actually the hamstring complex. I jumped too far. Sorry, right here on the right. So everybody, when they think about the hamstrings, what area of your body do you think about? What area of movement do you think about? You know, do you think about the ankle? Do you think about your back? Do you think about your hips? Go ahead and throw it in the chat. Let's hear what you have to say. Yeah, the knees, right. Andy, nice one. Victoria, great. Yeah, so most people think, okay, hamstrings, they bend my knee, right? What I want to point out is that particularly important as it relates to running is that the hamstrings actually cross the hip joint as well. And so when the hamstrings cross the hip joint and they act to extend the hip. So they're going to take that leg and pull it from the front of your body, right? From like a high stride position, right? From like the start of a stride, that kind of high knee position, Dalton. And they're gonna pull that leg behind you, okay? So not only do they act to do that movement, but they also play an important role in stabilization at the hip as well, right? So in runners, we see a lot of hamstring issues, but particularly we see a lot of high hamstring issues, right? These are the ones kind of up near your gluteal fold. And let me just jump out of screen share here. So these are the ones that are kind of like up near your gluteal fold, okay? And at this is from running, you know, too fast, too soon, right? Sprinting, or running hills, right? But it tends to be a bit of a nagging issue because a lot of people don't think about, okay, how do I load the hamstrings at the hips, which Karen was able to identify that they move the hips. So what we're going to do, we're going to start with an exercise where we're hamstrings at the hips. So we're going to get you to lie down on the ground if you've got a good space that's appropriate. Okay. And we're going to go into a long lever position. So that means that our knees are a little bit longer than 90 degrees. Okay. And then what you're going to do is you're going to dig your heels into the ground, really thinking of pulling with your heels, and then you're going to lift your hips. Okay. So if this feels too challenging, you can shorten up the lever. You can bring your heels in a little bit. The key is that you need to make sure that you're continuing to pull with your heels, that you're pulling your heels into the ground, that you're not pushing, but pulling. So you're consciously trying to slide those heels towards your bum. Okay. Now, again, if this is too challenging, you can also keep your hips on the ground. Okay, so what Dalton's going to do is he's actually going to step on in. And so I want you all to do a set of that. So what we're going to do is we're going to aim for 8 repetitions, and we're going to do 3 to 5 second holds. And we're going to move through a set like that. Okay, now if this is feeling particularly easy for you, you can also progress this by raising your heels up onto a surface. So Dalton's going to demo that for anyone who wants to see a more advanced version. Nice. Cool. So I see some people lying on the ground and doing the movements. Hopefully everyone's feeling that a bit. Where is everyone feeling that? Do you feel that sort of high in the hamstrings? Do you feel it low in the hamstrings near the knees? Do you feel your calf? Emily, legs up is generally more challenging. Yeah, the legs up version is generally more challenging, but again, it depends on how long you lengthen the lever to as well, right? So if you have a longer lever, it's generally a little more challenging. Shorter lever, a little bit easier. And yeah, so Megan's feeling it in the middle of the hamstrings. That's great. And so obviously any of those variations that we just went through can also be progressed to single leg. So if you were feeling like that was a reasonably good exercise for you, like you can try a little bit harder, try stepping up to the next level. So if you were on the ground, go to the box. If you did it on the box, why don't you try doing single leg on the ground, right? Or you could even do on the box, you could go up with 2 and then lift one leg off and hold in that position. So those are some ways that you might want to progress this second set. How's everyone feeling there? Nice. I see Megan going for a second set. Good. Single leg on ground really nails it. Nice one, Andy. Yeah. There's lots of ways we can have fun with the hamstrings using just our body weight. And so this is particularly relevant right now with with gyms being closed and people maybe not having all the appropriate weights and equipments at home to do heavy loading. We want to make sure we give you guys time to do your set there. So fire me a thumbs up when you're done the second set. So throw a thumbs up in the chat when you're done your second set. And then what we're going to do is move on to the next movement. So while you're finishing that setup, I want you to think about, okay, where is the movement happening in this particular exercise? Was it happening at the knees or was it happening at the hips? Right? So the reason we like this exercise so much is because of those high hamstrings, right? It actually works the hamstring at the hips, okay? The next one that we're gonna go into, yeah, thumbs up from the hips. Nice one, Karen. Great work, Cynthia. The next one that we're gonna do, if you have hardwood floors, okay, you can use a couple of towels. We use these slider boards, okay? They're little discs that are made of plastic that slide really nice on carpet and or turf like we have, okay? But again, a couple of towels on hardwood works really well. Cynthia had a question there. Does high hamstrings equal glutes or is it separate? Yeah, so the high hamstrings are separate from the glutes, okay? So the glutes kind of start from your hip bones and cross down to the thigh bone. Your hamstrings cross from your shin bone all the way up your thigh and cross right onto the hip, the bottom of the hip bone. So they are separate, separate muscle groups, but we target them in similar ways sometimes, okay? So this next one I saw, Debbie and Co, I saw you get a towel out. I love it. So let's go ahead and demonstrate this next one, Dalton. So what we're going to do, the most basic way that we can use this towel slider is we would really focus on digging the heels into the ground, okay, and slide our legs out. And this is where the money's made, is when you're sliding back in. It's when you're really digging your heels in and sliding back in. Okay, this is the most basic way to use the slider boards to target the hamstrings. And you'll notice his hips aren't moving, but his knees are. So now we're starting to target the hamstring from that bottom side. Okay, so to progress this, if this is feeling good, what you'd do is you'd go ahead and lift your hips and you'd really slowly control that out. And then you'd let your hips down onto the ground and slide them back in. And then you'd lift your hips and slide them out. Let the hips down and back in, okay? So let's go ahead and do a set with one of those two variations, depending on where you're at. Okay, so what we're gonna say a set is here is we're gonna aim for anywhere between like 6 to 8 repetitions.
This could be one where you pay attention to where you feel the tension, or if you feel in a different way than you did on the first example of the exercise that we did. So if you guys have noticed that, you can highlight that in the chat or let us know what you think.
Can you just show it, the first one again, the first step? Sorry, I didn't know whether I'm lifting my hips up or just sliding it back.
No, the first version, you're strictly digging your heels in. The harder you push into the ground, the more resistance you get. If you get to the point where your hips just want to come on up off the ground, you're probably ready for that next progression, which is lifting the hips and sliding out, and then letting the hips down and bringing them back in, and then lifting up, sliding out. Yeah, nice.
How far apart should your feet be?
How far apart? Yeah, good question. So I usually say hip width apart. So I like to think about when I'm doing most of my exercises, The most basic point of entry for me, I always say keep your hips, knees, ankles in line. There's obviously room for anatomical variety in there, like every body is different, but that's usually a good place to start with your toes relatively pointed straight up towards the ceiling. Good question. Good. So if everyone's done that set, what we're going to do is we're going to move on to a couple of progressions for this one. How are everyone's hamstrings feeling? You feeling it on that exercise? Nice. I see some people shaking, nodding their heads, Megan. Yeah. I see some thumbs up. That's great. So what we're going to do, if you feel like if that was the right difficulty for you, I'm going to have you do a second set like that. If you feel like you're ready for a little bit of a progression, what we can do is we can actually lift our hips up and we can alternately bring one leg out and then the other leg back in. And so you'll notice Dalton's doing a bit more of an advanced version of it right now where his legs are moving in sequence. They're moving together as one's going out, the other's coming in. If you wanted to make that a little bit easier, you can kind of hit a bit of like a pause point where they're both matched at the in the top position before you slide out again. Nice, Karen. Good. Dalton, you must not have gone for your run yet today, boy. Woo, this guy's getting all the training in. Nice. Cynthia. No, that's about right. So Cynthia, probably what you're feeling, this is a tough exercise and a lot of people start to get it a little bit in their calf as well. So you should be feeling in the backside of your leg. I'd say you should feel it more towards like the bottom side of the thigh or top of the calf. If you're feeling it directly behind the knee, like in that sort of like gap back there, it can sometimes be normal, but you may want to regress a little bit. Top of the calf, yeah. So if you're feeling top of the calf, probably you're just biasing towards using your calf as opposed to your hamstrings. And so I would look at that as an opportunity for you that we could probably target the hamstrings and make some good improvements. Emily's feeling it in her ankles. You could, that like the front of your ankle, like sort of like up in here. Yeah, probably what you're doing is you're actively bending your toes towards your knees too hard. So try to relax your foot a little bit and dig more with your heel as opposed to activating your toe. Yeah. Okay. So give that a go, and then what we're going to do is we're going to dive into the calf here shortly. Okay. Any questions from anyone while some people are getting their final set in? Nice. Yeah, good one. Cool. So it seems like everyone was able to target the right area, so that's sweet. I think that just goes to show that there's no right exercise for any one person, right? What I feel in my hamstring, you might feel in your calf. And it's about sort of exploring your body and figuring out what's right for you at this point in time, right? And so I think that was really cool being able to explore that with you guys. So what we're going to go into next is we're going to talk a little bit about calf anatomy, okay? I'm not even going to screen share because Dalton's basically an anatomical model, you see. So what we're going to do, so the calf muscle complex, okay? So again, what part of your body do you think of when you're talking about your calf muscles? What does it move? Throw it in the chat. We've got all night to wait. I promise. Yeah, ankles. Okay. Anyone else? Feet and ankles. Yeah. Any other thoughts? Plantar flexion. Nice. Knees. Yes, Karen must be the anatomist in the group. She recognized the hamstring as the hip mover and the calf as a knee mover. Okay, so that's right, Karen. So the calf muscle complex, not only does it plantar flex the ankle, right? So not only does it plantar flex the ankle, it also bends the knee. And so we were talking about that with I think it was Cynthia there, where one of you was feeling one of those sliders more in the calf than you were in the hamstring, right? And that was because there was a little bit of compensation happening there where your calf muscle was trying to help bend the knee, right? And so that's one of the cool pieces about the calf is that one of the muscles does cross the knee joint, okay? And ironically, if Dalton spins around, it's also the most visible. So it is we're gonna go up onto your toes and show off that gastroc muscle. Oh, you don't need to go that far away. So those bulging ones right there, that's the gastroc muscle, okay? Down under here, this is the soleus muscle, okay? So the soleus muscle, it's deep to the gastroc, and it's not a show muscle like the gastroc. The gastroc's for show, right? It looks good. The soleus muscle is actually 2/3 of the circumferential thickness of your calf. So you've got to believe that plays an important role in the body, right? And so it does. Newsflash. And so it plays a really important role in running, especially. So there's two pieces that it does. Number one, it attenuates force, which means it absorbs force as you're landing. It absorbs force, especially for like 4-foot runners or for people when you're sprinting, when you're landing more towards your 4-foot or midfoot. It's going to be absorbing force before it gets to your knee. So it's going to attenuate that force. Number two, we know from the research that the soleus muscle is one of the prime drivers of running propulsion. So people always think like glutes. It's your glutes. You got a stronger glutes to run faster. We tend to say around here that we got to put a bit more love into the calf muscle complex, right? Not that the glutes aren't relevant. They are. They just get a lot of love already because, media, I guess, right? It's all about media hype. And so we like to promote the soleus muscle around here. So we're going to get into both of those. We're going to go through a couple of ways to load the gastroc muscle that crosses both the ankle and the knee joint. And then we're going to do a couple options for the soleus muscle, which only crosses the ankle joint. Okay, so because they are different anatomically, one crosses the knee, one does not, we can be very specific in how we target them. Okay, so first thing we're going to do, we're going to actually do a little bit of a strength test for your calf muscle complex. I'm going to step out of the way so that you can see Dalton over here. You're going to use a counter. You're going to use something to support yourself from a balance perspective. This is not a balance test. Okay, this is a strength test. So first things first, if single leg heel raises are really hard for you and it doesn't feel like you're able to go through a nice full range of motion on it, then just do double leg, okay? But the information that I have as far as like what is a good goal to strive towards relates more to single leg, okay? So if you're able to do single leg heel raises, what we're gonna do is we're gonna go to a wall or a surface that you can kind of use it for support from a balance perspective. The key is that notice the height that Dalton is getting, okay? So failure is if he starts losing vertical displacement, right? So if he starts to get little mini pumps, I qualify that as the end of set, okay? So I want you to be within reason, getting that full range of motion. So Dalton, let's go ahead and see how many you can get. And everyone on the other side of the camera, let's stand on up and let's compare left to right if you've got time, or in general, just go with one of your, yes, 1 foot at a time, Emily. If you feel strong enough, right? If you don't feel strong enough, if you don't feel like you can do single leg, then go ahead and do double leg. I'm okay with that. Okay, and then I'm going to get you all keep track of how many numbers you're doing because I want to see some numbers up there. One for the time. Nice. Pop your numbers in the chat when you're ready. Barefoot the best. Yeah, we like training barefoot around here. We often advocate for sock-footed training in our clinic as long as people are doing the right things. People are going up and down like pistons. How many reps are we getting? Holy cow. Great work, everyone. Dalton's running out of steam. $15. Nice one, Victoria. How many you get, Dalton?
50.
50? Yeah, boy.
Been training those calves.
Yeah, man. That's that. Dalton recently ran his first marathon, and Dalton's a show off. Yes. Oh, if only you knew, Emily. So Dalton just ran his first marathon, and now he's actually switching gears towards 22 on your right, 18 on your left. Great work, Cynthia. Andy wasn't counting. Yeah, that's probably not sweet, Andy. Probably something to target a little bit. He felt he could do double on his right that he could do on his left.
I mean, that's why it's always interesting to explore these things, right? So it's like, that's a pretty significant difference, you know? So sometimes we don't even realize.
Yeah, it's funny some of the things that we stumble on when we're working with clients and doing a nice thorough movement assessment and checking out strength and actually measuring it with we've got some force meters here that we can assess things with, and people are like, wow, it's that different. I knew I felt something, but I didn't realize that, but what I look at that as, Andy, is an opportunity, right? So I'm just going to go through, I think anyone over single leg, anyone getting over 15 to 20 is you're doing good. Okay. On single leg, that's awesome. Right. And if you're new to running, if you're new to an active lifestyle, anything is awesome. Right. Use it as a baseline test and move forward from there. Right. But as far as goals, we like to see our high level endurance athletes. We like to see them hitting in the range of 20 to 30 single leg heel raises on each side, right? And as the show off over here demonstrated, it's possible. But
I have to look good for the camera.
But again, use tonight as a baseline, right? So 30 is your goal. That's sort of like your ceiling goal for performance runners. Certainly you can go beyond that, but you're going to mute everyone. Thanks. Yeah. Oh, that's better. Whew. Good. You don't even notice it happening, eh?
Yeah.
The white noise. So yes, that's great. But, as far as that strength differential side to side, I think it depends on how significant it is. There's going to be performance variability day to day. Most people have a dominant limb over the other, right? Whether it's the leg that you lead with up the stairs or that you kick with in soccer, vice versa, or, different things like that. So I don't think that side is super problematic. Double one side than the other, that's probably worth managing, right? But what we're gonna do, you're not supposed to have a favorite child, but I guess having a favorite limb is okay. Yeah, that is all right. But what we're going to do is we're going to dive into what we're going to dive into, this actually goes from Cynthia's question, is this type of exercise just a check of calf strength, or is it to build strength? And that can be very much used as a strength exercise. So if you were only able to do double leg heel raises, or if you found that your single leg heel raises, you were coming up a little bit short in range of movement comparatively, an exercise that we like to do is the front foot elevated heel raise. Okay, so you're going to get your foot on the bottom as close to that object as possible. Okay, this is to keep you really driving the force through that back leg. Okay, now this front leg, it's really there for balance. Okay, but if you found yourself coming up short on the range of movement, you weren't lifting up as high as you could on two legs, you can use that front leg to give yourself, lean your torso forward just a little bit to allow a little bit of extra range. Now, when you get to the top, you can actually stand up taller and let more of your weight back onto that leg, okay, to control it back down. So you can use that front leg only as much as you need to get that nice full range of motion. And this is a nice like transition towards single leg heel raises, maybe for you, Karen, right? Where you were doing 20 double legs. I think this would be a great option for you, for example, right? So everyone, go ahead and give this one a try. Even if you were able to do single leg heel raises, give this one a try and really allow this to explore how it can increase your range of movement, okay? Your step can be really any height. You know, this one is 12 inches. You know, really it's just, it allows you to sort of transfer the weight. It's got to be higher than your heel can lift in a heel raise. So probably anywhere from like 6 to 12 inches is nice. 18 inches would probably be okay for someone who's taller. A hardcover book might be a little bit of a struggle. You might be able to stack a couple. You could probably even use your chair, Emily. Throw your foot on your chair. It's really just there for a little bit of balance, okay? As long as it's not super slidey. Maybe even put the chair up against a wall, right? That way it doesn't slide out away from you, right? Safety first. Although I listened to a podcast called Safety Third. Yeah. Good. Where's everyone feeling that? Do you feel it high in the calf? Do you feel it low in your calf? Nice. I love that everyone's getting up and moving and doing the movements. Cool. Nice. How do y'all like that movement as an option compared to like standard heel raises? Yeah, better range of motion. Feels like less effort to work more. Yeah, and something that's cool about this one is that you can actually grab a plate, right? So you can actually make it heavier. You can actually take some weight and you can bear hug it or whatever you want to do with it. And you can add body weight. You can throw a backpack on with a bunch of canned goods, and you can actually do some additional strength work with this. And it takes the balance out of it, because once you can do like 20 plus single leg heel raises, probably we should be adding some weight or making it a little bit harder, right? But then balance becomes an issue. And this is a really beautiful way to either make single leg heel raises harder or make single leg heel raises easier. It's sort of an ironic exercise. All right, so where did everyone feel that one? Did you feel it high in your calf or low in your calf? Did you feel it up near your knee? Or did you feel it down near your ankle? Mid-calf, mid-calf. Nice. Good. Closer to the ankle. Mid-calf to high. Cool. Interesting. Closer to the ankle is an interesting one. You know, you might want to like pay attention to how that Achilles is feeling. Sometimes check out your mobility. So the next one we're going to go into is going to be for the soleus muscle. Okay. Tighten your foot. Yeah. So yeah, it might just be a load tolerance thing there, Karen. So just like, if it felt good doing the doubles, just stick to the doubles, right? When you start to feel it in the arch of your foot, it might just be like, again, like a movement that you've not been used to, right? So we might just need to grade our way into it. You can hold dumbbells in each hand for that as well, as opposed to bear hugging it. Dalton's just a big bear. So what we're going to go into next, we're going to do we're going to do bent knee heel raises. So you can go ahead and find yourself a doorway, find yourself a solid, it doesn't matter, Dalton, you can go wherever. Find yourself a solid beam or a desk or something that won't move on you, okay? And what you're going to do is you're going to go ahead and go into a bit of a squat. You're going to let your knees shoot over your toes. I want your knees bent to at least 60 degrees. A little bit deeper, Dalton. 60 degrees, and then we're going to go ahead and do heel raises from here. So we're going to let those heels, and I want the whole body to move, right? So not just your knees and your hips. I want the whole body to move there, Dalton. Yeah, there you go. But keep the knees stationary, but the whole body to move. There you go. Nice. That's the way. Maintain that knee bend. Good. Great. So we're just doing this double leg for now. Now, any calf exercise, as you're feeling a little bit more, a little bit stronger, a little bit more tolerant, any of these calf exercises, you can progress to adding what we call a deficit, right? So you can go ahead and slide that book under your toes, or pop a weight plate under your toes, and do the same movement, right? But from an elevated surface so that you can get into a deeper ankle bend, okay? So this is called a deficit heel raise. So where's everyone feeling this one? So cool. Yeah, so if you haven't started yet, start now. The knees, yeah, yeah, touche. Yeah, people definitely feel this one in the quad muscles and the knees, into the quads. Yeah. No, you're not doing it wrong if you feel it in the quads. This is a great. One of the reasons I love giving this exercise to my runners is because it actually really gets a good quad loading at the same time. But you should feel that low calf muscle working a little bit differently than when you were doing the straight knee one. Still close to the ankles, Megan. Yeah, so just keep an eye on that Achilles, I'd say, Megan. But the cool thing about that is that these are great exercises to work on Achilles issues as well. It's important to strengthen and load it, but just monitor the symptoms, right? Yes, Emily, when Dalton's going up and down, he's keeping those knees bent. That's what allows him to target that soleus muscle. Good. But this is a lot of work on those knees, right? So lower calves, Cynthia, nice. So the soleus muscle, one of the reasons that it's generally undertrained is because it's tough to target, right? You can do this sort of sitting on a chair or a bench with weights on your knees, right? And you can like lean your body weight onto it. You can add a dumbbell or a weight plate, right? But generally, that's not enough weight in the long term, right? Yeah. So sometimes, especially if we're challenging a muscle in a range of motion that it's not used to working on, we can get a little bit of that sort of shuddering or shaking sensation. So not a bad thing, as long as you feel like you're still in control, right? So this is a good option for loading the soleus, right? What Dalton was just showing, if you have difficulties with those bent knee standing versions, okay? So we actually kind of flew through that content tonight. What I want to do is I want to talk a little bit about how we might, program these. So generally when we're talking about strength training, we want to be incorporating strength exercises about twice a week. Okay, so more important than the specific repetition range, right? We can be really specific. If we're working with high level athletes, we're probably going to be targeting, if we're looking at strength, we want them in that like 5-6 rep range, right? You know, if we're looking at strength, if we want to build some mass, we're going to be a little bit higher than that. But when we're talking about more sort of intermediate level, beginner individuals or people who haven't had a background in strength training, we can make some really good changes in strength at any repetition range as long as we're working hard. Okay, so if you're doing those front foot elevated heel raises and you're doing 15 reps, and at the end of those 15 reps you're tired and your muscles are a little bit warm and you're feeling like it's been working, you're going to make changes over time, right? Maybe we could make faster changes if we worked at a heavier weight at an lower rep range, but you still have to be working hard, right? And I think the common denominator is that hard work, right? Is what makes that change over time. Okay. So as far as the number of sets, you know, I'd say starting in the range of like 4 to 6 total sets targeting your calf muscle, 4 to 6 total sets targeting your hamstring muscles is a good place to start. So you might do 2 or 3 of each of those exercises that we did tonight. And that would be a great little routine for targeting your posterior chain. So we're going to be sending out a PDF to everyone who was signed up, along with a link to rewatch this video if you wanted. But the PDF is going to also include like links to a bunch of different videos of the movements that we did tonight, as well as some others. Okay, so we'll fire that off to you, and you know, you can explore that on your own. And I believe there's a summary in there. I haven't looked at it actually in a little bit, but I believe there's a summary of the actual what we just discussed around reps and sets.
There's like a sample. Yeah. The last thing I'll add to that is just rest. Between sets is important. So when we think about, you know, true strength, let's say if we were having someone that was higher level strength, that's strength trained for a while, and we're loading them really heavy, like we want them to take good rest between their strength sets, anywhere between 2 to maybe 3 minutes. I usually recommend for people who are just getting into it, or maybe you're not as fluent in the strength training, like taking at least, you know, 90 seconds is a really good place to sit. And for one of two things. One, you want to let the muscles recover before you have that output again. And also just to check in with how you feel, you know, where are you feeling it? Is this more muscular? Are you feeling more discomfort that maybe not be related to the actual exercise? More just being aware of what you're feeling. So those are like the two things that are important from a rest perspective.
Feel free to open up your mics and fire some questions across. These exercises are to strengthen the muscles to prevent running injuries. Yeah, so Cynthia, we talk more about injury risk reduction than prevention, right? Injuries happen. If you move your body and you live life, it's pretty inevitable that you're going to run into an injury here or there, right? One thing that we know from the research is that being stronger is like one of the number one things that we can do to reduce injury risk, right? But although we sort of, you know, roped you in with this term bulletproofing, you know, even bulletproof vests can be penetrated, right? So, you know, injuries happen, but strength training is one of the number one things that you can do to reduce your risk, along with.
Yeah, well, for sure. One way I like to explain it, and a lot of times runners can kind of understand it, is like building your aerobic base takes a long period of time, and you want to have a strong aerobic base before you start to layer on more intense workouts, whether that be interval based or whatnot. Same thing goes for tendons, muscles, and joints. And I think we think, oh, just stronger means I'm going to be stronger in the muscle, but the purpose of these exercises is also to expose your tendons and your joints to load that you're going to need to tolerate while running. So thinking of building a big tolerance base for your tendons, your muscles, and your joints goes really well with building a good aerobic base for your fitness. And we often see the potential for less injuries to come into play when you start to layer in more intensity when you have a strong base to stand on. So it's kind of how I like to have people think about it in a sense.
Yeah, and I think one of the best ways to reduce injury risk is to have a really sound training program, right? A lot of people start running and then stop running because they injure themselves. And one of the common sort of threads there is that, maybe they have a history in cycling, or they were, an athlete when they were in their youth or whatever, is poor training programming, right? Too much volume too soon, too much speed incorporated before you've built up any capacity, right? And so, kudos to all of you for like jumping on Jordan and Runner's Den running program, because it can sometimes be hard to say like, hey, I need help with this, right? Especially, if you've gone it alone in a lot of different facets of your life. But having a coach, having someone in your corner, having someone to sort of guide you through the process and work you through the ups and downs and address some niggles or aches and pains or, a setback in your training, it goes a long way, right? And allows you to have sustainability, right? To not just run for, 4 weeks or 6 weeks, but at the end of 6 weeks, be excited about running and be like, hey, this is something I want to continue doing and continue to push a little bit. I was going to say Dalton's got a cool story here, but I'm just seeing if there's any other questions. Cool. Yeah. So full transparency, I've been working with Jordan over the past few months, and I think that's what he's sort of getting at right there. Jordan didn't come to me necessarily with an injury per se, but he came to me with some big goals, and he was like, hey, where are some opportunities to, A, reduce my injury risk, and B, kind of sort of like, perform better. And so certainly some of these movements and or progressions of them, I've had him doing, and then amongst other things, but he kind of commented there that he just feels more held together when he's running, right? So maybe a little bit less kind of sloppy while he's on the move. And, as I'm sure you may know, he's a big trail runner. So there's definitely a lot more instability thrown into the mix there. But yeah, I mean, all that to say, these exercises can, you're being coached by like a very elite athlete, right? They work for someone like him. They work for people who are just starting to run, right? You just have to find that point of entry. And that's something that we're big fans of here is sort of talking to people about, hey, you know what, people will come and they'll be like, I've tried this movement, or I've done this movement, or I can't squat, or I can't lunge. And we always say, hey, that's great that you've tried those movements. Let's see if are you open to maybe exploring the idea that there's a way to get you doing that movement, right? And we're all about sort of finding those entry points that we can start, stacking bricks and get people, where they want to be, right? Get them back to feeling confident in their body and sort of, confidence, I think, is a word that kind of, that I, when people leave saying I feel more confident in my body, that feels,
It's a good thing.
always feels good.
Yeah.
But I'm rambling here. Any other questions from anyone?
I have one. You mentioned stability. It makes me wonder if there'd be any benefit to doing some of those heel raises, either the bent knee versions or not, without a wall. So is there benefit to working that balance, I guess, besides just the strength aspect?
Yeah, I think there is. I think variability in training is really important. I think you know, if you're looking for a pure strength adaptation, then I think you take stability out of the question. If you're looking for, you know, a blended adaptation where you're like, hey, you know, I've never done strength training before, and I also find that I don't have great balance, then taking that away and you're going to get a little bit of both, right? You're not going to get the best strength adaptation, but you're going to probably get a little bit more of a balance or proprioceptive stimulus. So, you know, I hate saying it depends, but it does. It's a great question, and I think it goes back to the idea that there's different exercises for different people, and you know, I think as long as you're doing the exercise, as long as it feels good for you and it's targeting the right area, it's a good exercise.
How do you do that? It's cute. Oh.
Awesome. Well, again, if there's no more questions, we won't hold you up any longer, but I just wanted to thank you all for coming out and you know, spending your evening with us. I know most people are pretty done with these Zoom things, but we're going to keep cranking them out because we love sharing content with people. So you know, if Jordan will have us, keep your eyes peeled for something in the future. Maybe I'm not sure what we'll talk about.
We'll drum something up.
We'll drum something up. Maybe send them some thoughts, right?
Yeah.
Say, hey, Jordan, get those guys to talk about this.
And yeah, we'll follow up with the email tomorrow with the PDF for you guys and for a link to the replay if you want to watch us again.
Emily for the win, the sarcastic wit throughout. She wants to see you hit 52.
Next time.
All right. So
All right,
good to
thanks,
see you all.
guys.
Great
Have a
work,
good night.
everyone.
Thank you.